Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Isabelle Knight. I am the young writer and the middle grade fantasy author of the Enchantria series, and today I am super excited to have with us here another special guest. Everyone, please welcome Marla Louise Dallman, who is actually another young writer and also a fellow middle grade author. Marla?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm
Yeah.
really excited.
Yeah. To start us off, could you tell us a bit about yourself, your book, and how you got the idea for your upcoming middle grade mystery?
Yes. So I am a 16-year-old author and homeschooler. I have been writing for 6 years now, but telling stories for as long as I can remember. And I love all things middle grade and all things mystery. Um, if I'm not writing, I'm usually huddled in a cozy armchair with a classic book of some sort. And um, my book, Mr. Dixon's Will, is a middle grade mystery, as you said, and it is about 14-year-old Monica Bennett and her search for identity through the finding the will of billionaire art collector Mr. Dixon. Um, and I got the idea because well, first of all, this book was actually supposed to be a short story that I was writing for my mentor, and for my work with her. However, I quickly realized that I wanted this book to be a huge book and not just, 1,000 words long. And so I had had this idea for a book because there is this causeway in my town, which basically is a bridge that, boats can go through. And there's a part that, lifts up. And one time when we were waiting for a sailboat to go through on the way to the beach, I was like, whoa, it would be so cool if some sort of action scene was happened on this bridge. Um, and I told my sister, because we at the time and still are very into action movies. I can't think of any off the top of my head right now, but we really are. Um, and that idea, that one scene that I had where I was like, okay, they're trying to get something and they have to jump over the gap. That idea slipped right into the short story that I was writing, which really was not an adventure story, but I made it into one. But yeah, so that was 4 years ago now, and a lot of words later, I'm here.
Yeah, that is wonderful. And also, I really relate to what you said about it originally being like a short story. I and all of my friends, we always just write short stories for fun, just for creative exercises, writing prompts, those kind of things, and we will just write short stories. And then almost every single time we write a short story, it just balloons into a novel. I
You
I
can't help it.
yeah, I always struggle with writing short stories, or at least just keeping short stories because
Yeah.
yeah, I always just want to, learn more about those characters and the world and add a million plot twists and secrets and betrayals, and so.
Yeah. I mean, when you get an idea you love, it's hard to stop writing it, especially if you have a word count that you want to
Yeah.
confine to, or yeah, it's very difficult. I have
Yeah.
since then kind of mastered writing short stories, but they still sometimes turn into books. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
All of my short stories have honestly turned into book ideas, and now I just have this massive to be written list just kind of towering over
I
me.
love that. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so, how did you get started as a writer? And what were some authors or books that inspired you along the way?
Those are good questions. I got started as a writer because, well, I've always loved telling stories, as I said. My favorite thing to do when I was younger was sit in front of my dollhouse, and through the little, figurines, I would tell stories of woe and gore
I
for the
do that
longest
too.
time.
I did that
Yeah,
too.
it's amazing. Um, and I was kind of late to learning how to write. Not like, through extra structure and stuff, but like the actual spelling of it. And which is funny now, but it was not at the time, and I was very, very frustrated by it. And so when I was about 11, I was obsessed with this other young author who, if you take a look at my page, like I think my Instagram more so than my Substack. But if you take a look at my Instagram, you can very quickly glean who that author was, because she turned into my mentor. But it was Millie Florence,
Oh,
and
I've spoken with
yeah,
her.
yes, she's amazing. I love her so much.
Yeah, her
Um,
books are wonderful.
yes, they are. Anyways, so when I was 11, I had been watching her videos nonstop because like I had a 20-minute, I think, screen time like every few days. And so that would just be what my screen time would consist of, was just watching her videos. And so I don't really know. I think I had been interested in writing a book, but I really didn't know what to start with. And so I was just like, I came down to my mom after, one of my screen times, and she was making tea in the kitchen. I very vividly remember. And I was just like, Mama, I'm gonna write a book. And I walked back out. And so that was it. Meanwhile, I'm this 11-year-old who has so much trouble with spelling and has to ask every single time I want to spell a word because I have no clue what I'm doing. Um, and so, yeah, I like started writing my book, which didn't was not Mr. Dixon's Will. It was a different book, um, and have been writing ever since. And then the authors that have inspired me the most, probably the top one by far, is Millie Florence. I had met her when I was, I want to say 9, because she came to my book club to speak when she was 15. Um, and I had like loved her books, devoured Honey Butter so many times. Um, and I just loved the whimsicalness and the fun, but also I wouldn't like I don't really know how to explain it, but like her books, something that I like truly really loved about them and wanted to imitate was they were fun and they were lighthearted, but there was also depth to them, um, that you don't really recognize for what it is when you're reading them when you're 11. But like if I go back right now to reading them, I would be like, oh my gosh, this is so like cool, and I just like wanted to imitate that. And so her books definitely, and her just as a person, she's my biggest role model. Um, and then probably Harry Potter would be the next one, which I know is not very original, but
I love Harry
um,
Potter.
it's amazing. And you read it now. My favorite way to I guess consume it is listening to the Jim Dale audiobook version, which is amazing if you haven't listened to that. And just the entire world building of Harry Potter, I and the ability for her to say so much with so little, but then still fill up the world and feel like you're just like stepping into it. Um, and then the book that actually inspired Mr. Dixon's Will the most was The Truth According to Blue by Eve. I always mispronounce her name, so bear with me, but Yohala, I think is how you pronounce it. It's an amazing book. It's an amazing middle grade mystery. And when I read that book, I was like, that's what I want Mr. Dixon's Will to be, immediately. Um, and every book I read, I try to find something to be inspired by or want to imitate. So, but those are definitely the top 3.
Yeah, I haven't heard of said book actually, and you're making me want to check it out now. But
It's amazing.
yeah, and I definitely agree with you on like Millie Florence because I love her books so much as well, and she is also a huge inspiration to me. And it is very cool that you were able to have her as your mentor.
Yeah. Yeah, she's amazing. And any young author should definitely go check out her channel, her Instagram.
Yes.
She has a few talks online that are amazing. But yeah, it's a dream to work with her because I remember when I was first starting my book, Obviously I knew of her, and I was just like, do you think to my mom, like, do you think that she would read my book if I published it? And which is so crazy now, because it's like, of course she'd read it. She's read like so much of it already. Um, but yeah, she's truly amazing.
Yeah, that is absolutely wonderful. And so, how did you come up with Monica's character in your book? And, like, how do you typically go about developing your characters?
Ooh, okay, so like I said, Monica was originally the main character of my short story. Um, and at the time, I was I was feeling in the shadows a lot because I have oh no, sorry, three amazing older sisters who are extremely talented and are amazing people. And just being a younger sibling, I was like, I don't feel like I am that cool. And it was like, and I was just kind of frustrated because I was frustrated at myself and I was frustrated that I didn't feel like I was fitting into my own skin. Um, and when you are 13, 12 years old, that's very, very hard. And so I wanted to write a character that felt real to me, that was going to inspire other maybe kids who had really cool older siblings, or even just any siblings, because being a sibling's hard. Um, and I hadn't read anything like that in middle grade. So Monica came to me, I think, as pretty much all of my characters do, just kind of out of the blue, where I get like a tiny piece of what she's going to be. And then as I write her and kind of just like think more about her, she comes to me. And so I don't exactly remember when she did come to me because it was a long time ago. So I apologize. But yeah, that was kind of just like I wanted to write a character who was like me, and who, had a cool adventure, but then also was just a normal 14-year-old girl who felt a bit lost and a bit overshadowed. And then how I typically develop characters, hmm, it always ebbs and flows how I do it. It always changes. But yeah, I would probably say the most consistent form is just I get a little tiny piece, where I'm like, oh, that would be cool. Whether it's from inspiration from just like the outer world, from a different book, from something that I've been struggling with, or something that I love. And then I kind of just like run with it. Have a vision, but I don't really know what that vision is. And so I'm just like along for the ride. And then my favorite character in my book. I have a couple. I don't want to spoil the book, so I'm only going to say like the main one that's actually in the blurb. But Beckett Harts, he is so fun to write. I loved it so so much writing him. He's a very like just kind of buoyant, I guess, character. He has depth, of course, but he's very very buoyant. And just like happy to be there. Um, and just really really fun. Probably that probably be the top one, and then I have a few others that I don't want to spoil the book, so I can't really name them right now. But come back to me if you read the book, and I will spill the tea. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, he sounds like such a fun character, and I always love those characters. Those kind of just, like as you said, those buoyant characters. I always find that they're just such fun to read, and also a great friend to the main character, who I also really love because I think what you said about her just being like on this great adventure, but also still being a normal 14-year-old. I think that is really cool, and I do think that a lot of readers, especially those who are younger siblings, would definitely relate to her a lot.
yeah, I hope so because I put a lot of myself into it with obviously like making her her own person. But yeah, that's my goal. So I hope that comes true.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
authors in general, we might not base characters directly on real people or directly on ourselves, but I always feel like the characters that we write, oftentimes like even just tiny parts of us are going to just slip through subconsciously, whether it's like our
For
fears or
sure.
doubts or our love for this random thing that,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. That's very, very true. Yeah.
yeah. And what do you think was the hardest part about writing your book? And what was your favorite part?
Ooh. The hardest part was definitely the last draft. Because I had started writing this book when I was thir 13. And then last summer when I finished, um, I was 15. I'm 16 now, but obviously. Um, and so I had learned a ton. I had been writing for a long time at that point, and I was taking writing seriously, like not too seriously, but like seriously. Um, and this book was the book that I learned how to write with because I didn't know anything about the story structure when I started. I didn't know anything about, show don't tell or anything like that. And so I had really learned how to use those tools and skills in this book. And so obviously it was not perfect because nothing is. But I had this book and I wanted to change things about it. And with the knowledge that I now had, I don't want to say mastered, but become very used to using, it wasn't the book that I knew I could write, if that makes sense. Like it wasn't the book that I would probably write now, just because I've grown a lot. And so seeing that, I really wanted to change a lot of things. I really wanted to change like so many things. I ended up only changing the first couple of chapters because that's what was needed. The other stuff was just going to be like extra. Um, and so that was definitely the hardest part because it was like it's so weird to see you writing and love it, but then also be like, I could do better.
Yes.
And it was all summer long, I was like going back and forth between publishing, not publishing, changing it completely, leaving it as it is, and I kind of settled in the middle. Um, but yeah, because when you're a writer, you love your book so much, but then there's also a time where you just need to like step away and be like, okay,
Yep.
this is what it is. I'm proud of it. Um, and I hadn't ever done that before because, this was my first book, or like complete book. So yeah, and it's very, very hard when that happens. But again, that this happens to a lot of writers. I think Charles Dickens really, really struggled with this. J.K. Rowling, um, Tolkien, although he's a little bit different because he actually like continued writing it after he didn't like it. Um, so, he's yeah. But a ton of famous authors where you think like, oh my gosh, your writing is so good. How could you ever not be happy with it? Um, but you know, it happens. It's what you have to deal
Yeah.
with.
Yeah.
So yeah. My favorite part though was probably the early couple of drafts, like the second and third one, because I was like weaving the mystery together, and that was awesome because I was like, there's so many pieces and so many things that I want to incorporate, and it was like just super fun to just like bring it together. So yeah,
Yeah, I can see how that would be really fun. And I always admire mystery writers because like they manage to like write this mystery and you don't know who the culprit is. And all throughout the book the
yeah,
characters are just trying to follow these clues, trying to decipher motives, like what happened, when and where, and just all of these questions. And I have always admired mystery writers for being able to make mysteries just weave together so seamlessly because I
yeah,
feel like I would struggle with that a lot, especially since I'm a pantser. And so many of the times, I kid you not, I had a fantasy book where I believe I wrote during NaNoWriMo, and so many times I would just
oh
introduce a plot thread, and
yeah,
then 5 pages later decide, oh, I don't want to write this plot thread, but also I don't want to delete it. And so just keep writing, completely ignoring
Yeah.
that plot thread that I started. And so, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Mystery writers, I mean, I am one, but I'm also like, whoa to others because you have to keep track of so much as a mystery writer.
Yeah.
And I guess it's the same in a different way for,
Yeah.
fantasy authors.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a challenge for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how do you deal with challenges like writer's block, burnout, etc.?
Okay. For writer's block, that's interesting because in my view, there's three different kinds.
Yeah.
There's just classic, you cannot write. You feel like
Yeah.
no words will flow out of you.
Yeah.
And then there's something that my mentor actually calls writer's mud, where you don't like it, but you just have to slog through and like just keep going. Um, and then lastly, which I think is the one that I have had the most, is discomfort, which this is not my idea. This is just somebody else's. It's actually there's a TED talk on it by the author of Six of Crows and a lot of other books, Leigh Bardugo. She's amazing when it comes to writing. I definitely recommend listening to her if you're a young writer. Um, but she calls this when like you are starting a project and it feels very intimidating. It feels wrong. It feels not good. Like the idea feels super, super cool and intimidating, but how you're actually writing it feels not good. And it's very uncomfortable, and you are just like, basically. um, and so those are the three kinds in my mind. And for the first one, I've actually never had that. However, as a young writer, I have heard about it so much that sometimes I like convince myself that I do have it because it's weird, but it happens because it's often disguised as writer's block, but it's actually just discomfort where you just kind of have to go forward and write the first draft, even if it's terrible. And that actually happened with my first draft of my second book, which I'm currently working on. That draft, I hated. I absolutely hated. I was convinced I had writer's block. It was horrible sitting down to write it. But I just had to write it because if I didn't, then I knew it never would come out into the world. Um, and as a young writer, if I like go to a class or if I just take classes online, that's one of the main things that they talk about is writer's block, which when you're a young writer and you're just starting out, I don't know if it's that helpful because then you're like, oh, if I'm feeling uncomfortable and I'm feeling kind of like nothing's good, then I will just stop. Um, and sometimes that's the good thing to do, sometimes that's not. And you kind of have to talk to other writers. If you have someone in your life who knows a lot about writing, or maybe it's just like your mom or your dad, um, definitely talk to them about it because it's very, very confusing in the moment. And you can't really see it for what it is on your own.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's your experience or not, but that's just mine. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely had that experience before. It was honestly all three of those kinds of writer's block, writer's mud,
Yeah.
that feeling of just
Yeah.
can't write, and just that overall discomfort when my draft just
Hmm.
feels not right, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Which is a very hard feeling to have when you love a story so much and you're so excited to
Yep.
write it, but then you're
Yep.
like, nothing's working, nothing is clicking.
Yes.
I feel like I'm just like totally missing the point. But
Yeah.
yeah. Um, and then burnout. That's something that I'm very familiar with as somebody who likes to perfect everything when it comes to writing. But that can also really seep the creativity and the imagination out of a work in progress. That one, I feel like whenever it happens, it's a different solution that I have to take. The one I took most recently was just read. Like take a step back and just read. Um, that often helps for me. And then writing the short stories. We talked about this at the beginning, but writing short stories can be very fun. And especially if you're just like, I want to write, but I don't want to focus on, my huge project. I just want to write like 1,000 words or something. That's great. And you can really improve on your skills because it's so conformed and you have to fit into this really, really short, like, page limit and word count. And you can play around a lot and use skills in a different way where it's very concise, very snappy. And in all writing, every word counts, but especially in short stories because you have so few to work with. Um, and so that's how I deal with burnout a lot. But yeah, just take a break, read, write some short stories, and you hopefully feel rested and like ready to come back if you're struggling with a certain part of your book. But yeah,
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, especially about just, reading and writing other projects or short stories, because burnout is something I've struggled with a lot. And I feel like, yeah, like just doing that and taking a step back from your project really helps a lot.
yeah,
And I feel like I'm always a perfectionist, and so I just want to keep working on the story
yeah.
until I don't know, somehow the burnout goes away, which if you know the definition of burnout, you probably know that that is not the case. um
Yeah, it'll just keep growing.
yeah, so
Yeah,
yeah, so if anyone does have burnout with their writing, yeah, so definitely do that and like take a step back.
yeah, yeah. Which
And
is, it feels really, really wrong in the moment, but
yes.
it is what you need to do.
Yes. And
Yeah.
the sixth question that I have for you is sort of a sneaky question I ask almost every writer I meet, just because I was trying to come up with random questions to ask, and this was one that
Yeah.
popped up. So, do you have a secret pen name that no one knows anything about?
No, sadly. I am just Marla Louise Dallman. I've actually thought about starting one just because I'd be like, I could be totally in secret, just move in silence. But yeah, no, I really admire writers who have a pen name because to me, I just want to show everybody I know. And if I have a secret one, then that would kind of ruin the secret. Um, but yeah, I have thought about writing a book under a pen name, so maybe in the future,
Ooh,
maybe,
maybe.
but not right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I get that though. Yeah, especially as a part about wanting to show everyone you know, like the books you've written, which you might
Yeah.
not be able to do if you have a secret pen name. I mean, like family and friends, like they might know about your pen name and such,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just like, I'm so proud of it and I've worked so
yeah.
hard in it that why wouldn't I show them?
Yeah, and I actually asked some authors this once, and one of them replied that she had already worked so hard on the story that she wanted to see her real name on there and not a pen name. Like,
Yeah.
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 And
It's
what made you choose to write middle grade mystery? And was there anything hard about like learning to write mystery and just trying to weave everything together?
I chose to write middle grade mystery because that's what I read when I was that age. I have tons of books on my bookshelf from that time period where it's just middle grade mystery. Um, and I chose to write middle grade mystery just because I loved it. I loved there's this kind of feeling you get when you're reading middle grade mystery, especially when you feel like you are the main characters and you, because you're reading it, um, are discovering things that grown-ups don't know. And it feels like you know something they don't, because you do. It feels very clever and very fun. Um, and I really wanted to learn how to do that because when it's done well, it is amazing. And you feel so fun. And it feels like you are putting together the puzzle with them, even if you're just reading along. And so I chose to write middle grade mystery for that reason. And also because it can it can be a very fun book, obviously, and it probably I hope Mr. Dixon's Will is a fun book um, for people to read. And but you can also have depth to it in kind of the midst of the mystery and the plot twists. You can have depth in that where you can't really very naturally get, in my experience, with just like a straight contemporary middle grade book. And so that was just kind of like the natural thing for me to write at that time. I read it, I loved it, and I wanted to learn how to do it. It was very hard though, and I did at one point contemplate, those boards where it's like the red string and you're like connecting all of the dots.
Yeah, yeah.
And I did contemplate having one of those because I was like, there's so many puzzle pieces and there's so much stuff I have to keep track of. But there was no space in my room, so I could not do that.
Oh no.
Sadly. Yeah. And just because you know so much as the writer, and you know the puzzle pieces and you know when you want them to come in, but you can't spoil it to the reader too soon. And that was really hard because you're so excited about it and you're like, I want to write it right now, but you can't. And then sometimes, just because you're in your own head, you will drop a hint or foreshadow in um, a too overt way, and that will spoil it. I did have to rewrite quite a few of those sentences because I was just in my own head and I really wasn't thinking about someone reading it for the first time and not knowing these. I remember I was talking to one of my beta readers for like the very first round of beta reading, and she was talking about her like the people that she suspected would be the villain. And it was so funny because I was like, how can you not know? Like, I can see it so clearly. Like, how are you not seeing this? And I almost spoiled it for her. But yeah, like, you know so much. And you're like, how can you not? But they're reading it for the first time. And then, yeah, it's just, that's probably the biggest challenge of just dropping things too soon. But yeah, it's a fine line between foreshadowing and then just spoiling. So,
Yeah, I feel like that's
yeah.
the same even in like my fantasy novels. Also, I do think it might be harder in like mystery because you have so many of these puzzle pieces that
Yeah.
need to come together. But in writing fantasy, and I let me think. I've written plot twists before in like my previous work in progress, Island Keepers, and
Hmm.
I just had like this plot twist where there was something about some main characters that was connected to this ancient mystery, and then I had a beta reader, and I I had her read it. I wasn't done writing
Uh-huh.
it yet, but I had her read it because I felt like I needed like some feedback, like just anything to let me know that this was at least going semi well and the story made at least some sense. And I
Yeah.
asked her about the plot twist, and then what she said was that it had been very clear that the
Oh
plot twist was going to
no!
happen for like from like chapter 2. And so
That's horrible. Oh my gosh. It's like your worst fear when it comes to plot twists.
yeah.
Yeah.
Although to be honest, I was not subtle about the plot twist at all. Like it's hard to explain without like giving away the entire plot twist. I mean, the book has changed a lot now, but like it was just very clear that
Yeah.
that the plot twist was going to happen, and like I was just hinting at it so much that it's like impossible not to see. So
Yeah. Yeah. I had a couple of different instances where I like the beta reader who didn't know and had no clue. And then I had another one who was like, is it this person? And I was like, dang it, because it was too soon. Um, because I think she reads a lot of mystery too, and so she's very used to like clocking the hints
Yeah.
and the foreshadowing. Um, but I was like, oh no, 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 no. I had to be like, no, definitely not.
Oh,
Um,
wait, same, same.
yeah.
I had a person who was reading my books, and she was at a friend of mine, and she was asking, "Oh, I wonder who the traitor in the prophecy is. Is it this character?" And I was like, "No, no, absolutely not. No, no,
No,
you're
no.
totally wrong." Like, even though she was totally right.
Absolutely off the target. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and what did the first draft of Mr. Dickinson's will look like? And was there anything that changed from the first draft to the final one?
Yes. There was. The first draft looked extremely messy because at the time I didn't believe in plotting anything. Um, and so, which was not a smart idea, but I was a headstrong 13-year-old and could not be told what to do. So it also was very choppy in a lot of ways because it was a short story, and then I kind of just like drew out the short story, and then I kind of just like jumped into the book in kind of a very like haphazard way. And that was, it made sense in my head, but I believe my mentor read it and was just like, there's a lot of different plot points here that are not making sense. And, but so it changed quite a bit since then. But that first draft it was really just me getting all my ideas out for the book onto a page and kind of weaving it together, but not really. And kind of just like brain dumping everything I wanted this book to be and trying things out. So there was a lot of different themes and a lot of different subplots going on. And I believe one of the I put in one character, and then halfway through the novel, she just disappeared. I had no idea what happened to her, but she was there for a little while and then wasn't. And a lot of other important characters, they were kind of like in the background because again, I was just like basically brain dumping, and so they were in the background. But like since then, they kind of just like they came out and became part of the central story. So that first draft was kind of just like a learning curve because I had written a incomplete book. And then I had learned so much about writing, and then I had started this book, and then was just kind of basically trying all the skills and tools out, and not really knowing what I was doing, but I was just like, this is what's gonna work. um, and it has changed a lot since then. The first couple of chapters are the biggest probably changes of that I made because those didn't change to the very, very last draft. And it was only, I think I was at a conference last summer and I was thinking about my book because, it was a writing conference, so that's what I was thinking about naturally. And I was like, it would make more sense if I don't want to spoil anything, but if she did this thing instead of having the first couple of chapters kind of just be slow, um, and you just kind of like jumped into the story. And so that was probably the biggest change. And then also, there's so many moving pieces of a mystery that you have to kind of hit in order for, it to make sense. And I didn't really have those, so those I had to put in, and that took a lot of work because you had to put them in at specific points and then have it kind of naturally lead to the next point. And that took a long time for me to really perfect. And another character who's not really a main character, but she's kind of like a step down from being a main character, but not quite a side character. She came in like the fourth draft, which was kind of crazy because I was like, she's such an important character. You would think she came in earlier, but she didn't. I remember though, because I have done so many drafts of this book. I think it's like 7 or 8 now. It's a lot of drafts. I remember telling my mom when I first started writing, I would not do 7 drafts. That is just too many. I would just be happy with the story. But 4 years later, and I'm here. So don't speak too soon about things like that because you will end up doing them because, shocker, it actually makes sense to do them. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like every writer's first draft is just very, very messy, though. Even if you're an
Yeah.
experienced writer, and also even more so if you're like a beginner writer, because
Yeah.
you're still learning about writing, you're still learning about the story, and so of course it's just going to be, really messy. And I definitely relate to like some brain dumping thing because I did that last
Yeah.
year, and I was doing like a writing challenge, and so whenever I'm in writing challenges, I get way too competitive, and so I just want to write more and more words, and so I was just brain dumping the story, and
Yeah.
none of the plot threads made sense. I had this like this part of the plot that just it made no sense at all. It had to do with the main
Yeah.
character's missing sister, and it was just absolute chaos, and it left future me really confused about what on earth the story was meant to be about and what she was even supposed to revise. So,
Yeah. Yeah. It's you when you're a young writer, plotting seems just so weird to you for some reason. Because most of my writing friends, they're like, "Yeah, I never plotted like once, and then now I'm like a full-on plotter." And that happened to me too because I took a long time this past year to plot, to like replot my fairy book because I was like, it's not working as it is. But then also you kind of just like need to like go straight into the story in a way because you're yeah, you're new to this, you need to figure it out. And I wouldn't call it exactly a mistake to not plot or just to info dump because it worked for me. And now I'm publishing my book, but it definitely is like a mistake you need to learn in a way. Like it's a pretty essential mistake from what I have from my experience and then from those around me. But yeah.
yeah, like I don't plot, and I know a lot of writers who don't plot just because they want to see where the story takes them, and that's like what works for
Yeah.
them. But I can definitely say that pantsing, which is basically like you're writing by the seat of your pants, you're not really
Yeah.
plotting out the scenes. It can definitely get you lost in the weeds a bit. Some writers, like me, I do kind of enjoy it, but at the same time, you're lost in the weeds, and sometimes you're not really going to know where the story's going, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I was talking to one of my friends about it, and because I was like, we were using the analogy of like a roadmap where you have certain points
Yeah.
that you want to hit, and you know beforehand you want to hit those points, but then the road that takes you there is very, very windy. Um, and I would probably say that's if you want to just info dump and if you just want to like see where the story takes you, maybe start with that and have like, okay, what scenes do I really want to write, and then kind of just like get to those in a very windy and twisty way.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. And last but not least, what is your advice for young writers who want to start writing and get their books out there?
Oh man, I have thought a lot about this question. Um, okay, where do I start? Learn. I have two things. Okay, so learn everything you can. And I don't just mean like look up one video on a subject and consider it a done deal. Find a couple of different books, videos to really get into whatever tool or skill you want to learn. Because you hear a lot of things as a writer, like show don't tell, um, you know, have the aha moment, be super cool and deep and everything, or every word counts. You have those phrases, but you don't really know what they mean unless you study it a lot. And it can be very confusing to know where to look when you are a writer and you're wanting to um, learn more about everything because there's a lot of different resources and there's a lot of different um, skills and tools. So if you have a specific writer you want to reach out to that's alive, um, reach out to them. Because in my experience, writers are very welcoming people and they're very, very nice and kind people, and they really want to help other people. I did that for my own mentor, and she took me on. I have done that for other authors. I just am curious about this one thing that they did really well in their book, and they're extremely welcoming, and they have pointed me to different books and videos. So I would definitely say just do that. Don't be afraid to ask people, because if you don't ask questions, you won't get the answers at all. And you need to make mistakes and learn and just basically engulf yourself in writing. I am a homeschooler, so it was very easy for me to just basically, that was my entire world for, 4 years, 6 years, and I just learned everything I could. Um, if you are a young writer who's watching this, you can reach out to me or Isabelle. It's like I would be extremely happy to answer anybody's questions. Um, and then the second thing is, don't let the amount of stuff you need to learn and the amount of stuff that you need to try out and make mistakes with intimidate you. It'll be okay. Um, you just have to write, and you have to get over your fear of failing, because
Yes.
you will fail. You will not get around that. You will fail, massively. I have had so many drafts where I am just like, don't, I just feel like I entered a dark hole and I have no idea what I'm doing. And that feeling will teach you a lot about how you operate, and how you go about writing and being an author. And you often, as young writers, in my experience, get tripped up looking for the perfect idea that will fit and just feel natural for you to use all your skills and tools that you've learned when writing that book. I don't know how to say this nicely, but basically, that idea will never come. It's going to be hard. Write the story that feels like you. Write the story that you love. If you don't feel like any of your ideas are really playing out, steal an idea from another author, not in like a not in like a um crime or like burglary. I'm not saying that word right. Not in like a mean way, but if there's a book you love, try to write that book in your own way. Use the same idea. You can even use the same characters with different names. Basically just write fan fiction about that book. And that's really easy and very helpful to learn with, because most of the time, unless you're very ambitious, that book will never see the light of day, and it's just for you. Um, and so yeah, just go after it. There's really no way to get around making mistakes and failing. You just have to go head first into them, and yeah, just be tough. Learn a lot, and you're gonna fail, but it's okay.
Yeah.
So that's my advice.
Yeah, that is fantastic advice, and I especially agree with the part about failing, because, as you said, you're always going to fail. No matter what you do, there always will be times where you might not succeed, where you might just, struggle and fail. And, failure leads to growth. You can learn from that.
Yeah.
Like, learn from your mistakes. They can help you grow. And yeah, I definitely agree that young writers should not be afraid of failure and should, just
Yeah.
start writing anyway.
Yeah. You think that like that's not what the great authors or the authors you love do, but they have. Um, they from what I've heard about my favorite authors, they have failed so many times, and they've typically failed way more times than you even tried. And you think people are going to like judge you or think you're not a real author or whatever, but the real authors will cheer you on and will, you know, help you and be kind. And also it helps if you have somebody who you can kind of work with or like bounce ideas off of, or even just like an author, um, big or small, it doesn't matter if they like publish or not. A author who's been there for a while and has been writing for a long time and can just help you see your mistakes, because oftentimes you're too blinded by being close to the project to see your
Yep.
mistakes. But yeah, like it's okay if you fail. I used to think that something horrible and terrible would happen if I fail, um, but
Yeah.
nothing does. You just keep
Yeah.
writing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with all of that. And yeah, those are all of the questions I have for you today. Thank you
Thank you so
so
much.
much for joining me here for this interview. It was absolutely
Yes.
wonderful getting to talk to you, and especially since you are also another young author. It has been absolutely wonderful getting to talk to you and to learn more about your writing process, how you got started as a writer. And I am super excited for your new book. Do let me know when it comes out.
I will. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I've had a great time. For anybody who's listening, you can currently pre-order my book through my website, which is just marlalouisedallman.com. And you can get a signed copy if you order right now. But yeah, thank you so much for having me, Isabel.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. And
Yes.
also to those who are watching, thank you so much for listening to this interview or watching it. And yeah, I really hope you enjoyed learning more about Marla's writing process and her newest book. And yeah, if you don't, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel, and also check out my blog at springfallschronicle.com, where I share book reviews, more author interviews, and just the general chaos and rambling of a bookworm slash writer.